Good evening. It's Wednesday, the 29th of January 2025, and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Deadly stampede. Pilgrims are desperately searching for missing loved ones after deadly crashes at the world's largest religious gathering. Federal buyout. Trump administration offers buyout to all federal workers with pay through September. Wildlife rescue. Pair of endangered manatees brought back to health released into the wild of Puerto Rico.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Akhil Qureshi.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us on World News Tonight. A tragic incident has unfolded in India's Kumba Mela festival, where crowds crushed have left dozens feared dead. Millions of devotees gathered in Prayagraj for a holy dip, but overcrowding led to chaos and tragedy.
An Indian official says multiple people were killed and several more injured in a stampede at the Kumba Mela festival in northern India on Wednesday. The Kumba festival has been called the largest gathering of humanity, and tens of millions of people attend it every year. Pictures showed bodies being taken away on stretchers and people sitting on the ground crying. Others stepped over a carpet of discarded belongings left by people as they tried to escape the stampede. Dozens of ambulances rushed towards the riverbank where the incident occurred and where a Reuters witness saw several dead bodies. Officials said an initial stampede, which took place around 1 a.m. local time, was not serious, but its cause was unclear. However, witnesses said devotees trying to escape it were caught in another stampede at an exit. This victim said they were caught in the crush.
Suddenly, there was a huge crowd and we got stuck somehow. People started pushing aggressively and we fell.
The Kumba is an annual Hindus festival that sees people pack into the city of Prayagraj over the course of 6 weeks. Nearly 148 million people have attended since it began 2 weeks ago. Pilgrims take a holy dip in a river to mark the festival's most auspicious day. Hindus believe taking a dip at the confluence of 3 rivers in the area absolves them of their sins and confers salvation from the cycle of birth and death. The royal bath was called off following the incident, but later resumed. Officials said a special crisis unit had been deployed to bring the situation under control, and rescue efforts were underway. Authorities had undertaken several measures to cater to the enormous crowd, including increased security and medical personnel, special trains and buses, and the use of AI for crowd control.
In the wake of the fall of the Assad regime, a Russian delegation has arrived in Damascus working to secure the future of Russia's military bases in Syria. As the new government navigates shifting alliances, former Assad soldiers are surrendering for weapons and exchange of amnesty.
A man standing on a plastic chair calls out names. Hundreds of former Assad regime soldiers pressed against the gates of what once was one of the dictator's party buildings in Damascus. They are here to surrender weapons and register as civilians. Syria's new leaders are promising amnesty and reconciliation. The former conscripts stream past a desk, walking over the picture of Bashar al-Assad. They write down names, a quick photo with a simple smartphone, and up to the first floor where they hand over weapons and military IDs. Military service was compulsory in Syria. This man, a crucifix hanging around his neck, hands over his pistol and signs a form. They're given a 3-month temporary civilian ID, which they need to work and move around in the new Syria. The man in charge of this operation says the atmosphere is relaxed overall, but the sheer number of people applying for civilian permits is sometimes overwhelming. While this process unfolds in the upper floors of this former Ba'ath Party building, we find remnants of the old Syria strewn across the basement level. Room after room ransacked by civilians in the days after Assad fell.
This is the old regime patches. It already feels like a relic, and it hasn't really been that long.
Back outside, the crowd swells, while one after the other The young men answer a few basic questions before being sent on their way. On their faces, the future of Syria, hopeful but still uncertain.
As the Chinese tech startup DeepSeek takes the world by storm, it has sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley and Wall Street. Led by entrepreneur Ling Wenfeng, the company's latest AI model, DeepSeek R1, is being hailed as game changer for China, igniting excitement on social media while catching the attention of US industry giants.
On Chinese social media platforms like Weibo, hashtags like DeepSeek overturns US stock overnight and DeepSeek makes Meta panic have been trending as users celebrate the success of homegrown AI. Founder Liang Wenfeng, a former hedge fund co-founder turned AI visionary, is being hailed as the leader who pushed China's innovation to new heights. Unlike many Western firms, DeepSeek relies solely on domestic talent and keeps its AI models open source, allowing developers to build upon them. Remarkably, the company claims to have built DeepSeek R1 for under $6 million, far less than its American competitors, including OpenAI's GPT-4, Meta's Llama, and Google's Gemini. The success of DeepSeek has drawn global attention, with famed investor Mark Anderson calling it a Sputnik moment and US President Donald Trump calling it a wake-up call for America in its tech rivalry with China. The US has been imposing restrictions on China's access to high-end AI chips, but DeepSeek's rapid rise suggests China is finding ways to innovate despite these constraints.
Violent protests erupted in Kinshasa as demonstrators vandalized embassies and set fires to denounce the international community's inaction over the escalating conflict in Goma. Protesters accused Rwanda and Uganda of backing the M23 rebel group, which seized Goma's airport after intense fighting.
Heavy gunfire echoed through the streets of eastern Congo's biggest city on Tuesday. Rwandan-backed rebels entered Goma the day before, a dramatic escalation of a 3-decade conflict that has also triggered protests in the capital Kinshasa. But the rebels, led by the M23 militia, are facing pockets of resistance from the army and its backers. This social media video has been verified using previous footage of the area and satellite imagery, though the identities or affiliations of the troops were not confirmed. The violence has left, the United Nations said, many dead bodies scattered in the streets. This violence in eastern Congo is rooted in the Rwandan genocide and the control of natural resources. The UN and global powers fear an escalation into a regional war like those in 1996 to 1997 and 1998 to 2003. Conflicts that killed millions, mostly through hunger and disease. In the latest diplomatic efforts to resolve the crisis, South Africa said its president Cyril Ramaphosa and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame had agreed in a phone call on the need for a ceasefire. On Tuesday, the insecurity fueled anger in the Congolese capital over perceived foreign interference. Police clashed with protesters who attacked diplomatic buildings in Kinshasa, including a UN compound and the French and US embassies. This was the Rwandan embassy, its gates set ablaze. Rwanda has long denied backing M23, though UN experts have concluded that Kigali has provided significant manpower and firepower. The Congolese government and the head of UN peacekeeping have said Rwandan troops were present in Goma, backing up their M23 allies. Rwanda has said it was adopting a defensive posture because of the threat posed to it by Congolese militias.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. The Trump administration is offering buyouts to all 2 million federal workers, saying it could lead to a cost saving of $100 billion. And a federal judge temporarily blocked President Trump's order to freeze some federal assistance in White House, saying does not track with the president's executive orders.
Tonight, as part of his promise to reduce government spending, President Trump is making more than 2 million federal workers an offer. Quit now and accept a severance package. NBC News first reporting federal employees received the offer by email late this afternoon. The White House expects 5 to 10% of the federal workforce to accept it, which could lead to $100 billion in annual savings. But tonight, in a blow to the administration, a federal judge has temporarily blocked the president's attempt at another government shakeup, after the Office of Management and Budget overnight ordered a temporary pause on grant, loan, or federal financial assistance programs that might run counter to President Trump's executive orders.
It means no more funding for illegal DEI programs. It means no more funding for transgenderism and wokeness across our federal bureaucracy and agencies. President Trump is looking out for you by issuing this pause because he is being good steward of your taxpayer dollars.
Democrats immediately assailed the president's action.
Law enforcement, rural hospitals, aid to the elderly, food for people in need. This decision is lawless, dangerous, destructive, cruel.
While several state Democratic attorneys general sued to block the move.
When Congress dedicates funding for a program, the president cannot pull that funding on a whim.
But Republicans defending the freeze.
Let's get a handle on all this spending and figure out if it's going where it's supposed to go.
Tonight, the White House saying individual federal assistance would not be paused or reviewed under its plan.
Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, food stamps, welfare benefits, assistance that is going directly to individuals will not be impacted by this pause.
But all of it sparked confusion about who would be impacted. The White House says Head Start, the early childhood education program for low-income families, would not be affected. But Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy posting, quote, Head Start reimbursement system is shut down in his state.
After days of devastation, residents of Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles were finally allowed to return home, confronting the aftermath of deadly wildfires. The Palisades fire, which erupted amid powerful winds, has destroyed thousands of structures and claimed at least 12 lives. As firefighters work to fully contain the blaze, survivors now face a painful task of rebuilding.
Residents affected by the fast-moving Palisades fire in California sat in traffic almost a quarter-mile long on Tuesday, after finally being allowed to return home for the first time in 3 weeks. City officials granted access to destruction zones Tuesday morning, but only residents with proof of residency and required verification by law enforcement officers were allowed to drive into the affected areas.
I think we need to assess kind of the damage and to see it. Now we have a chance to sort of process what's happened. So, we have really no idea what we're going to kind of see.
I tried to get up yesterday, I couldn't. But look, we're looking forward to going up there. It's obviously been really, really hard. We want to see what's going on. And so, hopefully they get up there.
Since January 7th, California officials said the deadly Eaton and Palisades fires that have ravaged Los Angeles have come under greater control. The Palisades fire burned nearly 24,000 acres across the Santa Monica Mountains in the towns of Pacific Palisades and eastern Malibu.
A passenger plane caught fire just before takeoff at Gimha International Airport in South Korea, prompting a swift evacuation of all 176 people on board. The Air Busan Airbus A321 bound for Hong Kong had its rear section engulfed in flames, but emergency crews responded quickly, preventing a major disaster.
A major aviation incident was narrowly avoided when a passenger plane operated by Air Busan caught fire before takeoff at Gimhae International Airport. The Airbus A321, preparing for departure to Hong Kong, saw its rear section catch fire, forcing an immediate evacuation. Authorities confirmed that all 169 passengers, 6 crew members, and 1 engineer were safely evacuated via emergency lights. However, 3 individuals sustained minor injuries during the process. Firefighters quickly responded and the flames were fully extinguished within an hour. The cause of the fire remains unknown and an investigation is underway by the South Korean Transport Ministry. The incident comes just a month after a deadly crash involving Jeju Air flight at Muan International Airport, which claimed the lives of 179 people, one of the worst disasters in South Korea's aviation history.
Serbian Prime Minister has resigned amid nationwide protest following the deadly collapse of a railway station canopy in Novi Sad last November. The disaster, which killed 15 people, sparked mass demonstration demanding accountability and action against corruption.
Serbian Prime Minister Milos Vučević resigned on Tuesday following weeks of anti-corruption protests that have swept across the country. These demonstrations were triggered by the collapse of a railway station roof in the city Novi Sad, killing 15 people. What started as small protests in the area ballooned to widespread backlash, with people turning out in their thousands in capital Belgrade to blame the disaster on corruption within the government. Vučević told a press conference he and the mayor of Novi Sad would resign, meeting the demands of, quote, some of the most extreme protesters. This now former PM is the highest-ranking official to step down. Both the Transport Minister and the Trade Minister had already quit, but that failed to calm the public outrage. Vučević blamed foreign interference for stoking the protests without providing evidence. The focus for many analysts now is how much this will affect the president, Alexander Vučić. His party easily won a snap election in 2023, but, having also been accused of bribery and criminal ties, has come under increasing pressure.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. A heartwarming moment in Puerto Rico as a pair of endangered manatees were released back into the Caribbean Sea after being rescued and rehabilitated. A young manatee separated from their mother were nursed back to health before being set free.
It's a moment more than 5 years in the making. A significant swim that may help ensure the survival of a species. Endangered female manatees, Loisa and Taikaraya, celebrated as they were released back into the waters of the Caribbean. The pair orphaned as calves after getting stranded and separated from their mothers. Nursed back to health by the Caribbean Manatee Conservation Center in Puerto Rico, run by Dr. Antonio Mignucci. The gentle giants, a national mammal of the island, now a healthy 500+ pounds, and part of a multi-group effort to protect and conserve the species, which has long been threatened by loss of habitat, boat strikes, and infection. There are about 13,000 manatees worldwide, including 500 to 700 in Puerto Rico. Dr. Mignucci says thanks to an army of volunteers, donors, and sponsors, the center has been able to rehabilitate and release 11 manatees. The center will keep tabs on Loisa and Taikaraya for the next year with the help of special radio transmitters as they begin life back in the waters where they belong.
And finally tonight, the Lunar New Year celebrations are set to begin, marking the start of the Year of the Snake. Also known as Spring Festival, this annual event is widely observed across many Asian cultures, bringing traditions of family gatherings, festive meals and cultural celebration.
Along with the dragon dances and the red paper lanterns, this is another symbol of the Chinese New Year: jam-packed train stations. More than 500 million passengers will pass through major travel hubs as city dwellers return to their hometowns to celebrate the Lunar New Year with their families and usher in the Year of the Snake. Chinese New Year is celebrated beyond China's borders, like here in Thailand, where the main tourist street in the capital Bangkok was filled with dragons and drums, while in Myanmar celebrations took place under the shadow of the ongoing violence between the military junta and rebel groups. Other Asian countries are celebrating their own New Year customs. In Vietnam, people are preparing for the Tet Festival.
It's an occasion for reunion, a time to reflect and to honour our ancestors who give us the lives we have today.
It's traditional for families to bring fruit-laden kumquat trees into their homes. They're a symbol of prosperity, though ironically this year they're harder on the pocket because of a storm-hit harvest.
The most beautiful trees are expensive. People are not complaining about the prices. We're enjoying ourselves. It's a happy year.
Vietnamese families will eat seasonal dishes like banh chung, a steamed rice, bean and pork cake that takes 12 hours to make. It's labour-intensive, so people often buy them pre-made. But for many families, the time spent making them with loved ones at home is an unmissable part of the Tet celebrations.
Well, that's all we have for you on the rundown here on World News Tonight for this evening. We'll meet you again tomorrow with more updates across the globe. Stay tuned as we've got Anuradha Wickramasinghe joining you next on Nightly Business Report. Before we do end tonight, we'll leave you with the visuals of the Scottish Viking Festival taking place in Lerwick, Scotland. Thank you for watching. Good night.